Clara Jane McAllister pressed her children's faces against her chest so they wouldn't see her hands shaking as she divided the last piece of frozen bread into two. Not three. Two. She hadn't eaten in 4 days, and tonight she'd made her decision. When the children fell asleep, she would walk into the blizzard and never come back. A dead mother was better than one who watched her babies starve. That's when the door exploded inward, and a stranger's voice cut through the howling wind. If this story touches your heart, subscribe to our channel and stay until the end. Comment your city below. I want to see how far Clara's journey reaches across America. The bread crumbled in Clara's trembling fingers. She stared at the two small pieces, then at her children, huddled beneath every blanket and coat they owned. Henry, 7 years old, held his little sister Lizzie against his thin chest, both of them shivering despite the layers. The fire had died 3 hours ago. The last of the wood was gone. Clara tucked the bread pieces into her apron pocket and moved toward her children. Each step felt heavier than the last. 4 days without food had turned her legs to water, her thoughts to fog. "Mama!" Henry's voice cracked. "Is it morning yet?" "Not yet, sweetheart." Clara knelt beside them, pulling the blankets tighter. "Try to sleep a little more." "I'm so cold, Mama." Lizzie's teeth chattered. "My toes hurt." Clara pulled her daughter's feet into her lap and rubbed them through the worn stockings. The skin felt like ice. Panic clawed at her chest, but she forced her voice to stay calm. "I know, baby. I know. Mama's going to fix it." But she couldn't fix it. That was the truth she'd been running from for weeks. Will had been dead 8 months now, buried under a mountain of rubble in the copper mine collapse that had killed 11 men. The mine company had given her $20 and their condolences. $20 hadn't lasted through autumn. "Mama, I'm hungry," Lizzie whispered, the words carved into Clara like a knife. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the bread pieces. "Here, sweetheart. Share with your brother." Henry sat up, his eyes too old for his young face. "What about you, Mama?" "I already ate." The lie came easy now. She'd told so many. "Go on. Eat slow. Make it last." She watched her children devour the bread in seconds. It wasn't enough. It was never enough. Lizzie licked the crumbs from her palm, while Henry chewed each bite with his eyes closed, savoring what couldn't be savored. "That was good, Mama." Lizzie tried to smile. "Thank you." Clara's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. "You're welcome, baby. Now sleep. Morning will come soon." She waited until their breathing slowed. Waited until Henry's protective arm relaxed around his sister. Waited until she was certain they wouldn't wake. Then Clara stood. Her decision had been made 3 days ago when she'd walked 5 miles through the snow to the Peterson ranch and begged for work. Mrs. Peterson had looked at her with cold eyes and closed the door without a word. The rumor in town was that Clara had brought the mine collapse upon herself, that her uppity Eastern ways had cursed her husband. 2 days ago, she'd gone to Reverend Price. He'd offered prayers but no food. The church pantry was empty, he'd said. Hard times for everyone. Yesterday, she'd tried to trap a rabbit. Failed. Tried to find roots beneath the frozen ground. Failed. Returned home with nothing but frostbitten fingers and a certainty that had settled into her bones. She was going to die. That was unavoidable now, but her children didn't have to. Clara crossed to the small table and sat down heavily. By the light of the single remaining candle, she pulled out a sheet of paper and her husband's pen, the only thing of value she hadn't sold. Her hand shook as she wrote, "To whoever finds my children, their names are Henry and Elizabeth McAllister. Henry is 7, Lizzie is 5. They are good children, obedient, smart. Henry can already read and do sums. Lizzie knows her letters. Their father was William McAllister, a good man who died in the Elk Creek mine collapse. I am their mother, Clara Jane McAllister, formerly Clara Jane Whitmore of St. Louis, Missouri. I could not save them. I tried. God knows I tried. But I could not save them. Please do not separate them. They are all each other has now. Please tell them their mother loved them more than her own life. That is why I did what I did. Clara Jane McAllister, December 14th, 1876. She folded the letter and placed it on the table where it would be found. Then she stood, pulled on her thin coat, and moved toward the door. One last look at her children. Henry's arm tightened around Lizzie, even in sleep, protecting her, always protecting her, so much like his father. "I'm sorry," Clara whispered. "I'm so sorry I couldn't—" Her voice broke. She pressed her fist to her mouth to keep from sobbing aloud. Better to end it now. Better to let the cold take me quickly. Someone will find the cabin. Someone will find the children. They'll survive. They have to survive. Clara's hand closed around the door handle. The cold bit into her palm. She could already feel the blizzard's howl through the thin wood, could already imagine the snow swallowing her whole, could already. The door exploded inward. Clara screamed and stumbled backward, crashing into the table. The candle toppled and went out, plunging the cabin into darkness. "Hello!" A man's voice, rough and deep. "Anyone alive in here?" Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. She couldn't see anything, couldn't tell if this was salvation or something far worse. In these parts, strangers often meant danger. "Get out!" Her voice came out as a rasp. "Get out of my home!" "Ma'am, I mean no harm." The voice moved closer. "I saw your chimney from the ridge. No smoke. In this cold, no smoke means—" A match flared. Clara found herself staring at a man in a snow-covered coat, ice crystals clinging to his beard, his eyes narrowing as they adjusted to the dim light. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the weathered face of someone who'd spent years under open skies. Those eyes swept the cabin, took in the empty wood box, the cold hearth, the two children huddled under blankets. The woman before him so thin her cheekbones looked sharp enough to cut. "Dear God," his voice dropped. "How long since you've had a fire?" Clara lifted her chin. Pride was all she had left. "We're fine. Thank you for your concern. You can go now." The stranger didn't move. Instead, he lit the fallen candle and set it upright on the table. His gaze fell on the letter. Before Clara could stop him, he picked it up. "Don't!" She lunged forward, but her weakened legs gave out. She would have hit the floor if strong arms hadn't caught her. "Easy, ma'am, easy." He lowered her into the chair, then turned back to the letter. Clara watched his face as he read, watched his jaw tighten, watched something shift in his eyes, something that looked almost like pain. "You were going to walk into that blizzard," he said quietly. Not a question. Clara didn't answer. "And leave these young ones to be found by strangers." They would have been warm by then. Someone would have come. Someone— "No one was coming, ma'am." His voice was gentle but firm. "Peterson Ranch is 3 miles north and I passed it an hour ago, all sealed up tight. Town's another 8 miles. No one's traveling in this weather." The truth hit Clara like a physical blow. If this stranger hadn't found them— "Who are you?" she whispered. "Jackson Thornton. Folks call me Jack." He shrugged off his heavy coat and draped it over her shoulders. The warmth of it, the scent of leather and wood smoke, made her eyes sting with tears. "I'm bringing a herd up from Texas. Got separated from my crew in the storm. Saw your chimney and figured I'd find shelter. We have no food, no wood, nothing to offer you." I noticed. Jack was already moving, pulling the door closed against the wind, examining the cabin with quick assessing eyes. "How long since you ate?" Clara looked away. The children had bread this evening. "I asked about you, ma'am." The gentleness in his voice broke something inside her. A sob escaped, just one, before she pressed her hand to her mouth and forced it back. "I can't remember," she admitted. 3 days, 4, it doesn't matter." Jack muttered something under his breath. Then he pulled a leather satchel from his shoulder and set it on the table. "Beef jerky, hardtack, dried apples, coffee." He unpacked each item as he named it. It ain't fancy, but it'll keep you alive. Clara stared at the food. Real food. More than she'd seen in weeks. I can't pay you, she said. I have nothing. Did I ask for payment? Jack's voice sharpened, then softened just as quickly. Eat something, ma'am, then we'll talk about what comes next. He pressed a piece of jerky into her hand. Clara's fingers closed around it automatically. The smell of its salt and smoke and meat made her stomach cramp with desperate hunger. She took a bite. The flavor exploded on her tongue. She nearly wept. Jack watched her eat for a moment, then turned his attention to the hearth. Got an axe. Behind the cabin. But the wood, all the deadfall is buried under snow, and I haven't the strength. I'll find some. Jack was already heading for the door. Keep your young ones warm. I'll be back. He disappeared into the blizzard before Clara could respond. She sat in the darkness, chewing slowly, listening to the wind howl. Part of her wondered if she'd imagined the whole encounter. Hunger could do that, create visions, false hopes, cruel tricks of the mind. But the jerky was real. The heavy coat around her shoulders was real. The fading warmth, where his hands had caught her, was real. Mama. Clara turned. Henry was sitting up, his eyes wide in the darkness. Who was that man? I don't know, sweetheart. Clara moved to her children, bringing the satchel of food with her. But he brought us something to eat. She broke off pieces of jerky for both children, watching them eat with an intensity that bordered on desperation. Color began to return to their cheeks. Lizzie stopped shivering. Is he coming back? Henry asked between bites. He said he would. Do you believe him? Clara thought about the letter on the table, thought about what she'd been about to do, thought about the stranger who'd read her darkest intention and hadn't judged her for it. Yes, she said slowly. I think I do. 20 minutes later, the door opened again. Jack stumbled in his arms full of wood. Not deadfall, but fresh-cut sections from what looked like a fallen pine. Snow caked his hair and beard. His lips were blue, but he was smiling. Found a tree the storm took down about 100 yards out. Enough wood there to last a week if we're careful. He dropped the load beside the hearth and immediately began building a fire. You folks got any more blankets? These young ones need to be warmed proper. Clara directed him to the chest at the foot of her bed. He pulled out the remaining quilts, her wedding quilts, the last remnants of her former life, and wrapped them around the children without hesitation. Within minutes, a fire crackled in the hearth. Heat began to push back the killing cold. Lizzie laughed, actually laughed, as the warmth reached her. That feels so good, Mama. I know, baby. Clara's voice cracked. I know it does. Jack stood back from the fire, watching the children with an expression Clara couldn't quite read. There was sadness there, she thought, and something else. Recognition, maybe. You've done this before, she said quietly. Found folks in trouble. Jack's jaw tightened. Once, a long time ago. He didn't elaborate, and Clara didn't push. Everyone on the frontier had stories they didn't tell. The storm's getting worse, Jack said, moving to the window. Won't be safe to travel for at least 2 days, maybe 3. You can stay here. It's the least I can offer after... Clara gestured helplessly at the fire, the food, the warmth that was saving her children's lives. I appreciate that, ma'am, but we need to talk about what happens after the storm passes. Clara felt her stomach clench. Here it came. The price. There was always a price. I told you I have nothing. I ain't asking for anything. Jack's voice was sharp. Lord, woman, what kind of man do you think I am? Clara flinched. I'm sorry, I didn't mean... No, I'm sorry. Jack ran a hand through his wet hair. That was uncalled for. You've got no reason to trust me. No reason to trust anyone from the look of things. He sat down across from her, his eyes level with hers. How long since your husband passed? 8 months. And you've been alone out here since then. No family. No neighbors willing to help. My family is in St. Louis. They disowned me when I married Will. The old bitterness crept into her voice. As for neighbors, the folks around here don't take kindly to outsiders, especially outsiders whose husbands brought bad luck to the mine. Jack's eyes darkened. They blame you for the collapse. They blame me for everything. The drought last summer. The cattle sickness at the Granger Ranch. It doesn't matter. Clara shook her head. Superstitious nonsense, but it's enough to make sure no one will hire me or trade with me or... She stopped. She was saying too much, revealing too much. Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then, you know about the Holden Ranch? The Negro family, I've heard of them. Never met them. Ezra Holden's a good man. His wife Martha even better. They took in strays before folks with nowhere else to go, gave them work, food, shelter until they could get back on their feet. Hope flickered in Clara's chest quickly, followed by doubt. Why would they help me? They don't know me. They know what it's like to be turned away from doors that should have opened. They know what it means to survive when the world wants you dead. Jack leaned forward. Mrs. McAllister, I can't make you come with me, but I'm leaving for the Holden place when this storm breaks. If you want to bring your children somewhere safe, somewhere warm, somewhere you might find work and a fresh start, the offer's there. Clara looked at her children. Henry had fallen asleep again, but this time his face was peaceful, his stomach full, his body warm. Lizzie was examining one of the dried apples with wonder, as if she'd never seen anything so beautiful. Somewhere safe. Somewhere warm. A fresh start. The words sounded like a dream. And Clara had stopped believing in dreams the day they pulled Will's broken body from the rubble. Why? She asked. Why would you do this for us? You don't know me. Jack was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. I had a sister once. Evangeline. Evie, we called her. He stared into the fire. There was a winter when I was 12. Bad one. Crops failed. Pa couldn't feed all of us. So he sent Evie to live with cousins in Missouri. Said it was temporary. Said we'd send for her when things got better. Clara waited. We never did, Jack finished. Pa died that spring. Ma followed a year later. My older brother Silas took over the ranch and decided Evie was better off where she was. I was too young to fight him on it. His hands clenched into fists. Evie died of scarlet fever 3 years later. I never saw her again after the day she left. I'm so sorry, Clara whispered. I swore something to myself that day they told me she was gone. Swore that if I ever had the chance to keep a family together, any family I would, no matter what. Jack's eyes met hers. I ain't a saint, Mrs. McAllister. I've done things in my life that weigh on my soul. But this one thing I can do right. Clara's vision blurred with tears. She thought about the letter on the table, thought about the choice she'd nearly made, thought about how close she'd come to leaving her children the same way Evie had been left. Mr. Thornton. Jack. Jack. Clara took a deep breath. I've been so proud, so determined to manage on my own. I was taught that asking for help was weakness, that a woman of good breeding should never... She stopped, suddenly aware of how absurd the word sounded. A woman of good breeding. She was sitting in a freezing cabin in a tattered dress, half-starved, moments away from suicide, and she was worried about breeding. A broken laugh escaped her lips. Jack raised an eyebrow. Something funny. Everything, Clara said. Nothing. I'm so tired of pretending, Jack. Pretending I'm fine. Pretending I can handle this alone. Pretending I'm not terrified every single moment of every single day. So stop pretending. The simple words hung in the air. It's that easy? Clara asked. Never said it was easy, just necessary. Jack stood and added another log to the fire. Get some sleep, Mrs. McAllister. We'll talk more in the morning. Clara, he turned. My name is Clara. She pulled his coat tighter around her shoulders. If I'm going to trust you with my children's lives, you should at least call me by my name. A small smile crossed Jack's weathered face. Clara, then. Get some sleep, Clara. Tomorrow we start fresh. Clara nodded. She gathered her children close, lay down on the narrow bed, and for the first time in months, slept without nightmares. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Didn't know if the Holden Ranch would welcome them or turn them away. Didn't know if this gruff stranger with the sad eyes could really be trusted. But she was alive. Her children were alive. And right now, that was enough. Outside, the blizzard raged on. But inside the little cabin, the fire crackled. The children breathed softly, and Clara dreamed of spring. She woke to the smell of coffee. For a moment, Clara didn't understand. Coffee was a luxury she hadn't tasted in months. Surely she was still dreaming. Then she heard Jack's low voice. Easy there, son. Don't burn yourself. Clara opened her eyes. Pale morning light filtered through the frost-covered window. The fire had burned down to embers, but the cabin was warmer than it had been in weeks. And there was Jack, crouched beside the hearth, helping Henry hold a tin cup of steaming coffee. It's bitter, Henry said, making a face. That's how real cowboys drink it. Jack's voice was solemn, but his eyes sparkled. You want to be a real cowboy, don't you? I guess. Henry took another sip. His face was still comically scrunched, but he didn't put the cup down. Did you really ride all the way from Texas? I did. Is Texas far? About 1,000 miles, give or take. Henry's eyes went wide. That's far. It surely is. Jack noticed Clara watching them. Morning, Clara. Sleep all right? Better than I have in months. She sat up slowly, still wrapped in his coat. Is the storm? Still blowing, but lighter now. Should break by tonight, I reckon. We can leave at first light tomorrow if you're willing. Clara nodded. Then her gaze fell on her daughter, still sleeping peacefully beneath the quilts. Lizzie hasn't stirred? Let her rest. Growing children need their sleep. Jack poured another cup of coffee and brought it to Clara. Their fingers brushed as she took it. Thank you, she said, for everything. You already thanked me. I could thank you every hour for the rest of my life, and it wouldn't be enough. Jack looked uncomfortable with the praise. He stood abruptly and moved to the window. Storm's definitely easing. I should check on my horse, make sure he survived the night. You left your horse out in that blizzard. Tied him under the lean-to behind your cabin. It ain't much, but it's better than nothing. Jack was already pulling on his coat. I won't be long. He was gone before Clara could respond. I like him, Henry said quietly. Clara looked at her son. You do? He's different from the other men in town. He doesn't look at us like we're cursed. Henry's jaw tightened. Mr. Peterson called you a witch mama. I heard him. Clara's heart ached. When did you hear that? When you went to ask for work. I followed you. I wanted to make sure you were safe. Henry's voice wavered. He said bad things, Mama. Really bad things. And his wife just laughed. Clara set down her coffee and pulled her son into her arms. I'm sorry you heard that, sweetheart. I'm sorry about so many things. It's not your fault. Henry's voice was muffled against her shoulder. Papa always said some folks are just mean. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Your papa was a wise man. I miss him. I know, baby. I miss him too. They held each other for a long moment. Then Henry pulled back, his face set with determination. Mr. Jack says we're going somewhere new. Somewhere people will be nice to us. Is that true? Clara thought about what Jack had told her last night. The Holden Ranch. The family who took in strays. The chance at a fresh start. I hope so, she said. I really hope so. The door opened, and Jack returned, stomping snow from his boots. Horse is fine, ornery as ever. He glanced between Clara and Henry, noting their reddened eyes but saying nothing. Storm's definitely dying down. We should be able to leave by dawn. Then we should prepare, Clara said, rising. Make sure the children are ready to travel. About that. Jack's expression grew serious. The Holden place is about 15 miles from here. In good weather, that's maybe 5 hours on horseback. In this snow with young ones, it could take all day. Maybe longer. We'll manage? I don't doubt it. But there's something else. Jack hesitated. The route passes through town, Elk Creek. I need to pick up supplies, and frankly, my horse can't carry all 4 of us the whole way. We'll need to stop. Clara felt ice form in her stomach. The people there won't bother you. I'll make sure of it. You don't understand. They hate me. They've made it their mission to... Clara. Jack stepped closer, his voice low. I've faced down stampedes, rustlers, and Confederate cavalry. I can handle small-town gossips. She wanted to believe him. God, how she wanted to believe him. And if they won't sell you supplies, if they refuse to help because you're traveling with the cursed widow... Jack's jaw tightened. Then we'll manage without their help. Wouldn't be the first time I've improvised. Lizzie stirred on the bed, drawing everyone's attention. She sat up, rubbing her eyes, then spotted Jack and froze. Who's that? She whispered to her mother. A friend, Clara said softly. His name is Jack. He's going to help us find a new home. Lizzie studied the stranger with the solemn intensity only children possess. Then, do you have any more of those apple things? Jack laughed, a genuine warm sound that transformed his weathered face. I surely do, Miss Lizzie. How about some breakfast? They spent the day preparing for the journey. Jack found an old sledge behind the cabin that could be pulled behind his horse, making it easier to transport the children and the few belongings Clara wanted to bring. He repaired a broken runner, reinforced the sides, and lined it with blankets until it was almost cozy. Clara sorted through the cabin, deciding what to take and what to leave. In the end, it wasn't much. Her husband's pen, her wedding quilt, a small daguerreotype of Will from their wedding day, a few items of clothing that still fit. Everything else, the furniture, the household goods, the life she'd built, she left behind. No regrets, Jack asked, watching her close the cabin door for the final time. Clara looked at the small structure where she'd known happiness and heartbreak in equal measure. Where she'd given birth to Lizzie, nursed Will through a fever, spent countless nights dreaming of the future. Plenty of regrets, she said, but none about leaving. That night, with the storm finally spent and stars beginning to peek through the clouds, they made final preparations for the morning's journey. Jack unrolled his bedding by the door, while Clara settled the children in the bed. The fire crackled softly, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Jack. Clara's voice was quiet in the darkness. Yeah. What if the Holdens don't want us? What if they take one look at us and decide we're too much trouble? There was a rustling as Jack shifted. Then we find somewhere else. This territory's full of ranches looking for good workers. Someone will take you in. And if no one will, silence stretched between them. Then, I won't abandon you, Clara. Whatever happens, I won't ride away and leave you to fend for yourselves. You have my word. Clara's eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. Why? Why do you care so much about a stranger and her children? Because I know what it's like to be left behind. Jack's voice was barely above a whisper. Because I've spent 20 years trying to outrun that pain, and it never gets any easier. Because maybe, just maybe, if I can help you and your young ones, it'll mean something. It'll make up for all the people I couldn't save. Clara didn't know how to respond. She lay in the darkness, listening to the fire pop and the wind whisper around the cabin's eaves. Jack. Yeah. Thank you. For everything. For not giving up on us. A long pause. Then softly. Get some sleep, Clara. Tomorrow's a big day. Clara closed her eyes. Beside her, her children breathed softly, their faces peaceful in sleep. Tomorrow, they would leave this place. Tomorrow, they would face the town that had shunned them, the gossips who had spread lies about them, the future that loomed uncertain and frightening. But they wouldn't face it alone. And right now, that made all the difference. Dawn broke cold and gray over the frozen landscape. Clara lifted Lizzie into the sledge, tucking blankets around her daughter's small body, while Henry insisted on walking the first mile like a real cowboy. Jack checked the horse's harness one final time. Ready. Clara looked back at the cabin. 8 months of memories. 8 months of grief. 8 months of slowly dying. Ready, she said. They moved through the snow in silence, the horse's breath forming clouds in the frigid air. Henry lasted exactly 20 minutes before his teeth started chattering, and Jack lifted him onto the saddle without a word. How much farther to town? Clara asked. Another hour, maybe less. Clara's stomach tightened. Elk Creek, the place that had turned its back on her. The people who whispered which when she passed. You don't have to come into town with me, Jack said, reading her expression. I can leave you at the edge while I get supplies. No. Clara's voice was firmer than she felt. I won't hide. I've done nothing wrong. Jack nodded slowly. All right then. They crested a small rise, and there it was. Elk Creek sprawled in the valley below, smoke rising from a dozen chimneys, the main street already showing signs of life despite the early hour. Mama? Henry's voice was small. Do we have to go there? Just for a little while, sweetheart. Then we'll be on our way. But what if they're mean to you again? Jack turned in the saddle. Anyone's mean to your mama, Henry, they'll answer to me. Understood? Henry's eyes went wide. Then he nodded solemnly. Understood. They descended into town. Clara felt the stairs before she saw them. Mrs. Granger paused in sweeping her porch broom, frozen mid-stroke. Old Mr. Hendricks stopped loading his wagon to gawk. 2 women outside the general store put their heads together, whispering. Keep walking, Jack murmured. Eyes forward. Clara obeyed, though every instinct screamed at her to run. She could hear fragments of conversation as they passed. The McAllister widow. Thought she'd died out there. Who's that man with her? They reached the general store. Jack dismounted and helped Clara down from where she'd been walking beside the sledge. His hand lingered on her elbow, a small gesture of support that meant everything. Stay with the children, he said. I'll be quick. Clara nodded. She positioned herself beside the sledge, one hand resting on Lizzie's blanket-covered form. Her chin held high, despite her racing heart. The door to the store opened. Jack disappeared inside. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Clara heard footsteps approaching. Well, well. The voice was familiar. Cold, cruel. Look who crawled out of her hole. Clara turned to face Margaret Peterson. The rancher's wife stood with 2 other women, their expressions ranging from hostile to gleeful. Mrs. Peterson. Clara kept her voice level. Good morning. Is it I wouldn't know. We've had nothing but bad luck since you arrived in this town. Margaret's eyes swept over Clara's thin frame, her tattered dress, her hollow cheeks. Though it looks like your curse has finally turned on you. There is no curse, Mrs. Peterson. Only superstition and cruelty. Margaret's face reddened. How dare you? Mama. Lizzie's small voice cut through the tension. I'm scared. Clara immediately turned to her daughter, crouching beside the sledge. It's all right, baby. These ladies were just leaving. We most certainly were not. Margaret stepped closer. I want to know who that man is. The one you've lured into your web. I haven't lured anyone. She probably bewitched him. One of the other women laughed. Same way she bewitched poor William McAllister into marrying her. Will loved me, Clara said quietly. Whatever else you believe, that was real. Love? Margaret snorted. A stable hand's daughter doesn't know the meaning of the word. Clara felt something snap inside her. 8 months of insults. 8 months of being turned away from doors. 8 months of watching her children suffer because of these people's prejudice. "You know nothing about me," she said, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. "You know nothing about my husband or my family or my life. You've created a story in your heads, a story about curses and witches and evil, because it's easier than admitting the truth." "And what truth is that?" Margaret demanded. "That bad things happen. That the mine collapsed because it wasn't built safely, not because of some imaginary curse. That your cattle got sick because of contaminated water, not because a widow looked at them wrong. That you're all so afraid of things you can't control that you've chosen to blame the easiest target." Clara stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "But I'm done being your scapegoat, Mrs. Peterson. I'm leaving this town, and I'm never coming back. So you'll have to find someone else to blame when your chickens stop laying or your bread won't rise." Silence fell over the street. Margaret's face had gone from red to white. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "No one talks to me like, 'Everything all right here?'" Jack's voice cut through the tension like a blade. He stood in the doorway of the general store, a sack of supplies over his shoulder, his eyes moving between Clara and the women. "Just fine," Clara said. "These ladies were saying goodbye." Margaret opened her mouth to respond, but something in Jack's expression made her reconsider. She gathered her dignity like a shawl and stepped back. "Good riddance," she spat. "And good luck finding anyone else willing to take in trash like you." She turned and stalked away, her companions hurrying after her. Jack moved to Clara's side. "You all right?" "I'm wonderful." Clara realized she was shaking not from fear, but from something else. Relief. Triumph. "I've wanted to say those things for months." "You said them well." Was that admiration in Jack's voice? "Now let's get moving before she decides to come back with reinforcements." They were loading the supplies into the sledge when a new voice called out, "Ma'am, Mrs. McAllister." Clara turned. A young man was hurrying toward them, barely more than a boy, really, with a shock of red hair and freckles scattered across his nose. "Tommy?" Clara recognized him. Tommy Brennan. He'd worked in the mine with Will. "Ma'am, I heard you were leaving." Tommy stopped a few feet away, twisting his cap in his hands. "I just wanted to... I needed to tell you." "Tell me what?" Tommy's eyes dropped to his feet. "The collapse. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't anybody's fault except the company's. They knew those support beams were rotten. Mr. Harrison told them, and they didn't listen." Clara's breath caught. "What?" "I was there when he reported it. 2 weeks before the collapse. They said it would cost too much to replace the beams." Tommy's voice cracked. $20. That's what they gave each widow. $20 for a man's life." Clara felt the ground shift beneath her feet. She'd known deep down that the curse was nonsense, but to have it confirmed, to know that Will had died because of greed, not fate. "Why are you telling me this now?" she whispered. "Because you deserve to know, and because..." Tommy glanced around, lowering his voice. "Because I was too much of a coward to say it before. I let them blame you. I let them call you names. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Clara stared at him for a long moment. This boy who'd stayed silent. This boy who'd watched her suffer. This boy who in the end had found the courage to speak. "Thank you, Tommy," she said finally, "for telling me the truth." Tommy nodded, still not meeting her eyes. Then he turned and disappeared back into the crowd. Jack touched her arm gently. "Clara, I'm fine." She wasn't fine. She was reeling. But she was also free. Free of the doubt that had plagued her, the tiny voice that wondered if maybe somehow the curse was real. "Let's go. I want to be as far from this place as possible." They left Elk Creek behind them, and Clara didn't look back. The journey to the Holden Ranch was long and cold, but Clara barely noticed. Her mind kept returning to Tommy's words. $20. That's what Will's life had been worth to the mining company. $20 and a widow's curse. You're quiet, Jack observed. Just thinking. About what that boy said? About a lot of things. Clara glanced at her children dozing in the sledge. About whether I should have fought harder, asked more questions, demanded answers. You were grieving. You were trying to survive. You did what you had to do. Did I just accept what they told me because it was easier? Jack was quiet for a moment. Then, my brother Silas took over our family's ranch after Pa died. Told me I was too young to inherit, too inexperienced to help run things. I believed him, packed my bags and left without a fight. How old were you? 15. Clara's heart ached. That's not too young. That's just young enough to be manipulated. Maybe. Jack's jaw tightened. Point is, we all make choices we regret. We all look back and wonder, what if? But you can't change the past, Clara. You can only decide what to do with the future. Is that why you're helping us to make up for leaving? Jack didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was rough. I'm helping you because it's the right thing to do. Because you needed help and I was there. Because... He stopped. Because what? Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the moment I saw you standing in front of your children, ready to die so they could live. Jack's eyes met hers. I've met a lot of people in my life, Clara McAllister, cowboys and outlaws and generals and governors, but I've never met anyone with courage like yours. Clara felt heat rise to her cheeks despite the cold. I wasn't courageous. I was desperate. Same thing sometimes. They traveled in silence for a while, but it was a different kind of silence now, charged, expectant. There it is, Jack said finally. Clara looked up. Spread across the valley before them was a ranch not grand but substantial. A main house with smoke rising from 2 chimneys. A large barn, several outbuildings, and everywhere signs of life. Horses in a corral, chickens pecking at the snow-dusted ground, a dog barking excitedly at their approach. It's beautiful, Clara breathed. It's home, Jack said. For some folks anyway. A figure emerged from the barn as they approached. A tall black man with broad shoulders and a beard streaked with gray. He raised a hand in greeting, then froze as he recognized Jack. Jack Thornton. That you. In the flesh, Ezra. Ezra Holden strode toward them, his face breaking into a wide grin. Thought you were pushing cattle to Montana. Got separated from the herd in the storm. Found something else instead. Jack nodded toward Clara and the children. Ezra's expression shifted as he took in the scene. The thin woman. The 2 small children stirring in the sledge. The wary, desperate look in Clara's eyes. Martha! Ezra called toward the house. We've got company. The door opened and a woman emerged. She was perhaps 50, with silver-threaded hair pulled back in a neat bun and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Martha Holden took one look at Clara and her children and immediately took charge. Ezra, get them inside. Jack, see to the horse. She pointed at Clara. When did you last eat a proper meal? Yesterday. Jack gave us supplies. Jack's trail rations don't count as a proper meal. Come inside, all of you. Martha's voice brooked no argument. We'll sort out the rest after you've got some hot food in your bellies. Clara found herself swept into the warmth of the Holden home before she could protest. The main room was simple but comfortable with a large fireplace and a long wooden table already set for a meal. Sit, Martha commanded, pointing to the table. Children, too. Henry and Lizzie, wide-eyed and silent, obeyed immediately. Clara followed, too exhausted to argue. Martha moved to the stove, where a pot of something heavenly smelling was simmering. Jack finds you in the storm. He found us in our cabin, Clara said. We had no food, no wood, no need to explain. Martha ladled stew into bowls, her movements efficient and practiced. I know what desperation looks like. Seen it plenty of times. Worn it myself once or twice. She set the bowls before them. Clara's hands trembled as she lifted her spoon. The first bite made her want to weep. "This is so good," Lizzie said, her mouth full. "Thank you, ma'am." Martha's stern expression softened. "You're welcome, child. Eat as much as you like. There's plenty more." The door opened, and Jack entered with Ezra close behind. Both men were brushing snow from their shoulders. "Horses settled," Jack reported. "Fed and watered." "Good." Ezra pulled up a chair. "Now suppose you tell us the whole story, Jack. From the beginning." Jack glanced at Clara. She nodded almost imperceptibly. He told them everything. The blizzard, the cabin with no smoke, the letter on the table, the children nearly frozen, the town that had branded a widow as a witch rather than offer help. As he spoke, Clara watched the Holdens' faces. Ezra's jaw tightened with each detail. Martha's eyes grew harder. "Elk Creek," Ezra said when Jack finished. "I know that town. Tried to buy supplies there once. They wouldn't sell to me." "Ezra," Martha said quietly. "No, Martha. Mrs. McAllister should know. She's not the first person those folks have turned away. She won't be the last." Ezra leaned forward. "Mrs. McAllister, this ranch we built it from nothing. Started with 40 acres of land no one else wanted. Now we've got 200 plus 100 head of cattle, and we did it while people tried to burn us out, run us off, drive us away." "I'm sorry," Clara said. "I didn't know. How could you? You were dealing with your own troubles." Ezra's expression softened. "Point is, we know what it's like to be unwanted, and we don't turn people away because of where they come from or what lies have been told about them." Martha placed her hand over her husband's. "What Ezra's trying to say in his roundabout way is that you're welcome here, Mrs. McAllister. You and your children." Clara's throat tightened. "I can work. I can cook and clean and—" "We'll figure all that out tomorrow." Martha stood. "Tonight, you rest. There's a cabin out back been empty since the Parsons family moved on last spring. It's small, but it's sound. I'll have Ezra light a fire. I can't accept charity. It's not charity." Martha's voice was firm. "It's Christian decency. Something too many folks seem to have forgotten." Clara looked at her children. Henry was fighting to keep his eyes open, his belly full for the first time in weeks. Lizzie had already lost the battle, her head resting on the table beside her empty bowl. "Thank you," Clara whispered. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." "Live," Martha said simply. "That's how you repay us. Live and raise those children and prove all those small-minded fools wrong." Later that night, after the children were settled in the small cabin's 2 narrow beds, Clara sat by the fire and tried to process everything that had happened. 24 hours ago, she'd been preparing to walk into a blizzard and die. Now she was warm, fed, safe. Her children were sleeping peacefully in a real home, with a real roof and a real fire. A knock at the door made her jump. "It's Jack." Clara opened the door to find him standing in the snow hat in hands. "Just wanted to make sure you were settled all right." "We are, more than all right." Clara stepped aside. "Would you like to come in?" Jack hesitated, then entered. He stood awkwardly by the fire, looking everywhere except at her. "I'll be leaving in the morning," he said finally. "Need to find my crew, finish the drive." Clara's heart sank, though she'd known this was coming. "Of course. You've already done so much. I'll come back." She looked up sharply. "What?" "After the drive. I'll come back this way." Jack finally met her eyes. If you'd want me to." Clara thought about the long road that had led her here, the grief, the hunger, the despair. And at every step this man had been there, steady, patient, kind. "I'd want you to," she said softly. Jack's face relaxed into something approaching a smile. "Then I'll be back before spring. You have my word." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Clara." "Yes." "You're going to be all right. You and your young ones. I know it. How can you be so sure? Jack looked back at her, his expression unreadable. Because I've never seen anyone fight as hard as you do. And people who fight like that, they don't lose. Not in the end. He was gone before Clara could respond, disappearing into the night. She stood at the window watching until he was out of sight. Then she returned to the fire, wrapped herself in a blanket, and allowed herself for the first time in months to hope. The next morning, Jack was gone. Clara felt his absence like a physical thing, a hollow space in the cabin where his presence had been. But there was no time to dwell on it. Martha Holden arrived at dawn with breakfast and a list of tasks that needed doing. "Can you read?" Martha asked without preamble. "Yes. My mother taught me before she died." "Good. We've got 8 children on this ranch, counting yours, and no teacher. Think you could manage lessons?" Clara blinked. Yes, I think so." "Then that's settled. Mornings you'll teach. Afternoons we'll find something else. Plenty of work to go around." It wasn't a question. It was an assignment. And somehow that made Clara feel more grounded than any offer of charity ever could. "Mama?" Henry appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Where's Mr. Jack?" "He had to go, sweetheart. He has work to do." Henry's face fell. "Will he come back?" "He said he would." "Do you believe him?" Clara thought about the promise in Jack's eyes, the certainty in his voice. "Yes," she said. "I do." The days that followed blurred together in a rhythm of work and warmth and slowly returning strength. Clara taught lessons in the Holdens' main room, reading and writing and arithmetic, while Henry and Lizzie made friends with the other ranch children. She learned to cook on Martha's wood stove, to mend clothes with fabric scraps, to laugh again at simple things. Ezra put her to work, keeping the ranch's records, ledgers, and inventories and correspondence that had piled up since their last bookkeeper had moved on. Clara's neat handwriting and quick mind proved invaluable. "You've got a head for numbers," Ezra observed one evening reviewing her work. "Where'd you learn?" "My father was a merchant, before he became—" Clara stopped. "Before things changed." Ezra didn't press. He simply nodded and returned to his work. Weeks passed. The worst of winter began to ease. And every day, Clara found herself glancing toward the road, searching for a familiar figure on horseback. "He'll come," Martha said one morning, catching her at it. "Jack Thornton keeps his word." "I know. Clara shook her head. "It's foolish. We barely know each other." "Sometimes that's how it happens." Martha's eyes grew distant. "Ezra and I met during the war. He was a freedman working for the Union Army. I was running from a plantation in Georgia. We had 3 days together before he was shipped to another camp." She smiled. "Didn't see him again for 2 years. But I knew. From those 3 days I knew." "Knew what?" "That he was the one worth waiting for." Clara thought about that conversation often over the following days. Worth waiting for. Was that what Jack was? A man worth waiting for. She'd had a good marriage with Will. Not perfect. No marriage was, but good. They'd loved each other. Built a life together. Created 2 beautiful children. The thought of replacing that felt like betrayal. But Martha's words echoed in her mind. Jack wasn't a replacement. He was something new. Something different. Something she hadn't known she needed until he'd burst through her door and refused to let her die. It was early March when the rider appeared on the horizon. Clara was hanging laundry behind her cabin, fighting the wind for possession of a bedsheet, when Henry came running. "Mama! Mama! Someone's coming!" Clara's heart leaped. She dropped the sheet and hurried to the front of the cabin, shading her eyes against the pale spring sun. The rider was still too far away to identify. But something about the way he sat in the saddle, something about the set of his shoulders. "It's him," she breathed. "It's Jack." Henry let out a whoop and took off running. Clara called after him to be careful, but the boy was already halfway across the field. She watched as Jack dismounted and caught Henry in a bear hug, swinging the boy in a circle. Watched as Lizzie emerged from the barn and raced to join them. Watched as Jack looked up, his eyes scanning the property until they found her. Even from this distance, she could see his smile. Clara's feet were moving before she made a conscious decision. Walking at first, then faster, until she was practically running across the snow-patched ground. She stopped a few feet away, suddenly uncertain. What was she supposed to say? What was she supposed to do? Jack solved the problem by closing the distance between them. "I came back," he said simply. "I noticed." "Did you doubt me?" "Not for a second." They stood there inches apart, the children dancing excitedly around them. "I have something to tell you," Jack said. "Something I should have said before I left." Clara's heart hammered. "What is it?" Jack took her hands in his. His fingers were cold from the ride, but his grip was strong and sure. "I love you, Clara McAllister. I've loved you since the moment I saw you standing in that doorway, ready to walk into a blizzard for your children. And I know it's too soon, and I know you're still grieving, and I know I'm just a trail-worn cowboy with nothing to offer except—" Clara kissed him. She didn't plan it, didn't think about it. One moment he was talking, and the next her lips were on his, and the children were cheering, and nothing else in the world mattered. When they finally broke apart, Jack was grinning like a fool. "I take it that means you feel the same." Clara laughed, a real laugh, full and bright and alive. "What do you think?" "I think," Jack said slowly, "that this is the beginning of something wonderful." And standing there, surrounded by the family she'd found in the most unlikely of places, Clara finally believed him. 3 weeks after Jack's return, Clara woke to the sound of screaming. She bolted upright in bed, heart pounding. The screams came again, ragged, desperate animal sounds that made her blood run cold. "Jack!" Clara threw off the blankets and ran to the window. The screaming was coming from the bunkhouse where Jack had been staying since his return. She didn't think. She just moved. The cold hit her like a wall as she burst outside in nothing but her nightgown. Her bare feet crunched through the thin crust of late winter snow. She could hear other doors opening, other voices calling out in alarm. Clara reached the bunkhouse first. Jack was on the floor, tangled in his blankets, thrashing and crying out words she couldn't understand. His eyes were open but unseeing, fixed on something only he could see. "Jack." Clara dropped to her knees beside him. "Jack, wake up." He didn't respond. His hands clawed at the air, fighting invisible enemies. "No! Get down! They're coming from the left flank! Get down!" Clara grabbed his shoulders. "Jack, it's Clara. You're safe. You're at the Holden Ranch." His fist swung out. Clara barely dodged it. "Jackson Thornton." She put every ounce of authority she possessed into her voice. "You look at me right now." Something in her tone cut through. Jack's eyes focused. The thrashing stopped. He stared at her chest, heaving sweat pouring down his face. "Clara." His voice was raw, broken. "What, where?" "You're safe. You're here with me. It was just a dream." Jack's face crumpled. He turned away from her shoulders, shaking. "I'm sorry," he gasped. "I'm so sorry you had to see. Don't you dare apologize." Clara moved closer, placing her hand on his back. She could feel him trembling. "How long has this been happening?" "Since the war. Every night." A long pause. "Most nights." Clara's heart broke for him. 12 years. 12 years of reliving whatever horrors he'd witnessed on those battlefields. 12 years of waking up screaming alone with no one to bring him back. "Why didn't you tell me?" Jack finally turned to face her. His eyes were red-rimmed, haunted. "Because I didn't want you to know what kind of man I really am. What I've done. What I've seen." "Jack." "I killed people, Clara. Boys younger than Henry. Men with families waiting for them back home." His voice cracked. "Sometimes I can still see their faces. Every single one." Clara didn't hesitate. She wrapped her arms around him and held on tight. "You were a soldier. You did what you had to do." That doesn't make it right. No, it doesn't. But it doesn't make you a monster either. She pulled back to look at him. You saved my life. You saved my children's lives. Whatever you did during the war, that doesn't erase who you are now. Jack searched her face, looking for judgment, for fear, for disgust. He found none. You should run, he whispered. Far away from a broken man like me. I've been running my whole life, Clara said softly. From my father. From expectations. From grief. I'm tired of running, Jack. And I'm not about to start again just because you have nightmares. She kissed his forehead gently. We'll get through this, together. Whatever ghosts you're carrying, you don't have to carry them alone anymore. For the first time since she'd known him, Jack wept. The next morning, Clara found Jack already at work in the barn mending a broken harness. He wouldn't meet her eyes. About last night. We don't have to talk about it, Clara said. Unless you want to. Jack's hands stilled on the leather. I haven't told anyone. About what happens when I sleep. Not ever. Now you've told me. And you're still here. Where else would I be? Jack finally looked up. Something had shifted in his expression, a vulnerability she'd never seen before, and somehow it made him more beautiful to her, not less. I don't deserve you, he said quietly. Let me be the judge of that. The moment was interrupted by the sound of approaching hoofbeats. Both of them turned toward the barn door. Ezra appeared, his face grim. Jack, Clara, we've got trouble. What kind of trouble? Jack was already on his feet. Ryder just came in. Says there's a man in town asking questions. Big man, well-dressed, looking for someone named Thornton. Jack went pale. Silas, he breathed. How did he find me? Who's Silas? Clara asked. Jack's jaw tightened. My brother. Clara stared at him. You said your brother took your family's ranch, that you haven't spoken in years. I haven't. Then what's he doing here? Nothing good. Jack grabbed his hat. I need to go. I need to. You need to calm down and think. Ezra stepped into his path. Man like that doesn't travel 1,000 miles for a friendly reunion. He wants something. Question is what? I don't care what he wants. I won't see him. Then he'll come here. Ezra's voice was firm. And he'll find Clara, find the children, find us. That what you want. Jack's hands clenched into fists. Clara watched the war play out across his face, the desire to run battling with the need to protect. I'll go into town, he said finally. Find out what he wants. End this. I'm coming with you, Clara said immediately. No, absolutely not. This affects me too, Jack. Affects us. I won't be left behind to wonder and worry. Clara, you don't know Silas. He's not like me. He's cold, calculating. He'll use anything he can to get what he wants. Then I should see him for myself. Clara's chin lifted. I've faced down worse than a greedy rancher. Jack looked like he wanted to argue, but something in her expression must have convinced him it was pointless. Fine, he said through gritted teeth. But you stay behind me, and if I tell you to run, you run. Promise me. I promise. They rode into Elk Creek together. Clara felt the familiar hostility wash over her as they entered town. But this time, she barely noticed. All her attention was focused on finding the man who had caused Jack so much pain. They didn't have to look far. Silas Thornton stood outside the saloon, arms crossed, watching their approach with a predator's patience. He was taller than Jack, broader, with the same dark hair, but none of the warmth. His eyes were chips of ice in a handsome, cruel face. Little brother. Silas's smile didn't reach his eyes. Took you long enough. Jack dismounted, but didn't approach. What do you want, Silas? Is that any way to greet family? It's been, 12 years? 13. 15. Not that you've been counting. Silas's gaze slid to Clara, still mounted on her horse. Something flickered in his expression. Interest calculation, something that made her skin crawl. And who's this? Don't tell me you finally found a woman foolish enough to take you on. Leave her out of this. Touchy. Silas pushed off from the wall. I came a long way, Jack. Cost me time and money I don't have. The least you can do is hear me out. I've got nothing to say to you. Then listen. Silas's voice hardened. Pa's ranch is failing. Cattle prices dropped. Banks threatening to foreclose. I need cash and I need it fast. Jack laughed bitterly. So you tracked me across half the country to beg for money. That's rich, Silas. You threw me out with nothing. Told me the ranch was yours by right. Now you want my help. I'm not begging. I'm offering you a deal. Silas reached into his coat and pulled out a folded document. Pa's will. The one Ma hid before she died. The one that splits everything 50-50 between us. Jack's face went white. You're lying. Read it yourself. Silas thrust the paper toward him. Half the ranch is yours, little brother. Always has been. I just forgot to mention it. Clara watched Jack's hands tremble as he took the document. His eyes moved across the page once, twice, 3 times. This is real, he said slowly. This is Pa's handwriting. I know. You knew about this. For 15 years you knew, and you let me believe. Jack's voice broke. I thought Pa didn't want me. Thought he chose you over me. Do you have any idea what that did to me? I did what I had to do. Silas's voice held no remorse. I was 20 years old with a ranch to run and a kid brother who wanted to play cowboy. I needed you gone. Jack lunged. Clara screamed his name as he tackled Silas to the ground. The 2 brothers rolled in the dirt, fists flying, years of betrayal exploding into violence. You stole my life, Jack roared. You stole everything. Silas fought back hard, landing a blow that split Jack's lip. I made that ranch what it is. You would have run it into the ground. They struggled evenly matched until Ezra appeared from nowhere and hauled Jack off his brother. Enough! Ezra's voice boomed. Both of you, enough! Jack strained against Ezra's grip, blood dripping from his mouth. Silas climbed to his feet, brushing dirt from his expensive coat. Feel better, Silas sneered. Get it out of your system. Because whether you like it or not, we need to talk business. I don't want your ranch. I don't want anything from you. Then sign over your half and walk away. That's all I'm asking. Silas's eyes glittered. Otherwise, I'll fight you in court. Drag this out for years. Make sure everyone knows about the great Jackson Thornton war hero, cattle driver, and abandoned brother who left his family to rot. That's not what happened. Doesn't matter what happened. Matters what people believe. Silas smiled coldly. Your choice, little brother. Give me what I want, or I'll destroy everything you've built, including that pretty little widow you've taken up with. Clara felt ice form in her stomach. Jack went very still. You leave her out of this. Why? She's leverage. That's all anyone is in this world, leverage to be used. Silas's gaze swept over Clara with unconcealed contempt. Though I can't imagine what you see in her. Scrawny thing. Probably can't even give you sons. Something snapped in Clara. She was off her horse and in front of Silas before she knew she'd moved. You listen to me, she said, her voice low and deadly. You can threaten Jack. You can threaten the ranch. But you do not get to threaten me or my children. Because unlike your brother, I have nothing left to lose. And people with nothing to lose are very, very dangerous. Silas's eyes widened slightly. Whatever he'd expected from the scrawny widow, this wasn't it. She's got fire, he said to Jack. I'll give you that. She's got more than fire. Jack moved to stand beside Clara. She's got me. And if you come near her or her children, I will end you, brother or not. The 2 men stared at each other for a long moment. Then Silas laughed. Fine, have it your way. But this isn't over, Jack. I'll be at the hotel for 3 days. You have until then to make your decision. After that, he shrugged. Well, Let's just say things will get unpleasant." He turned and walked away without looking back. Clara's knees gave out the moment he was gone. Jack caught her before she hit the ground. "I've got you. I've got you." "That man is evil," she gasped. "Jack, he'll destroy us. He won't touch you. I swear on my life he won't touch you or the children." Clara looked up at him. His lip was swelling, his eye already darkening with a bruise, but his expression was resolute. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet." Jack helped her stand. "But whatever it is, I'm not doing it alone. Not anymore." They rode back to the Holden Ranch in silence. Clara's mind raced with possibilities, each worse than the last. Silas Thornton wasn't a man who bluffed. If he said he'd destroy them, he meant it. Martha was waiting when they arrived. "I heard," she said simply. "Ezra sent word." "He knows where we are," Clara said. "He knows about the children. If he decides to use them, he won't get within a mile of this place." Martha's voice was steel. "Ezra's already posted lookouts. Anyone approaches who shouldn't will know." "This is my fault." Jack's voice was hollow. "I brought this down on all of you. I should leave. Go back to Texas. Face Silas alone." "And let him win." Clara rounded on him. "That's exactly what he wants, Jack. To isolate you. To make you think you have no choice but to give in." She's right. Ezra had joined them, his expression grim. "Man like Silas doesn't fight fair, but that doesn't mean he can't be beat. How he's got money, lawyers, connections. I've got nothing. You've got the truth." Martha stepped forward. "You've got witnesses, and you've got that will proof that he lied to you for 15 years. His word against mine. Then we find more proof." Clara's mind was working furiously. "There must be someone back in Texas who remembers. Someone who knew your father knew about the will, knew what Silas did." Jack shook his head. "Anyone who might have known is long dead. Pa's lawyer, the witnesses, even the neighbors who were there." "What about your sister?" Everyone turned to look at Clara. "Evie," she continued. "You said she was sent to cousins in Missouri. Did she ever come back? Even for a visit?" "No, she died of scarlet fever when she was 11. But before that, did she write? Did she know anything about your father's plans?" Jack's brow furrowed. "She wrote a few letters, but I don't—" He stopped. Something shifted in his expression. "Wait. There was one letter, right after Pa died. She said something about Pa making her promise." "Promise what?" "I don't remember exactly. I was 15 and grieving. I barely read it before Silas took it away." Jack's face paled. "Silas took it. Said he was keeping all of Pa's correspondence together. For posterity. Or to hide evidence." Ezra's voice was hard. "If your father told Evie about the will, then Silas has been sitting on proof of his own betrayal for 15 years. Clara felt hope surge through her. "Jack, we need that letter." "It's in Texas, at the ranch, assuming Silas didn't destroy it." "Men like Silas don't destroy things. They hoard them, keep them as insurance." Clara grabbed Jack's hands. "We have to go. We have to get that letter before he realizes what we're planning." "Clara, I can't take you to Texas. It's 1,000 miles. It's dangerous. The children—" "We'll stay here with Martha and Ezra." Clara looked at the older woman. "If you're willing." Martha nodded without hesitation. "They'll be safe, I swear it." "Clara, think about what you're saying." "I have thought about it." Clara's voice was firm. "I've spent my whole life letting other people fight my battles, letting other people decide my fate. I'm done with that, Jack. This affects my future too. Our future. I won't sit here waiting while you ride off to face your demons alone." Jack stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly a smile spread across his battered face. "You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met." "Is that a yes?" "It's an acknowledgement that I'd be a fool to argue." He pulled her close. "We leave tomorrow. First light." That night, Clara explained everything to Henry and Lizzie. "You're leaving." Henry's voice was small. "Both of you. Just for a little while." Clara knelt before her son. "Mr. Jack needs my help. There's something we have to do in Texas." "What if you don't come back?" The question cut Clara to the bone. She remembered the letter she'd written all those months ago. The letter that had said goodbye. "I will come back," she said fiercely. "I promise you, Henry. I will always come back for you and your sister." "Papa promised too," Henry whispered. "And he didn't." Clara's heart shattered. She pulled her son into her arms. "I know, sweetheart. I know. But I'm not going into a mine. I'm not going anywhere dangerous. I'm just going on a trip and then I'm coming home." "Promise?" "I promise on my life." Henry clung to her for a long moment. Then he pulled back, his young face set with determination. "Then you better go. Help Mr. Jack. But come back fast, okay?" "As fast as I can." Lizzie, who had been quiet through the whole exchange, suddenly spoke up. "Mama, is Mr. Jack going to be our new papa?" Clara's breath caught. She looked at Jack standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Would you like that?" she asked softly. Lizzie nodded solemnly. "He tells good stories, and he makes you smile. Papa would want you to smile." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, baby, he would." That night, after the children were asleep, Clara found Jack on the porch staring up at the stars. "You heard what she said?" Clara murmured. "I heard." And Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object. A ring, simple gold worn with age. "This was my mother's," he said. "She gave it to me before she died, made me promise to give it to the woman I loved." Clara's heart stopped. "I was going to wait. Do this proper. Ask your permission, court. You like a gentleman." Jack turned to face her. "But life's too short for waiting. I learned that the hard way." He dropped to one knee. "Clara Jane McAllister, I don't have a ranch or a fortune or anything to offer except a damaged soul and a stubborn heart. But if you'll have me, if you'll take a chance on a man who spent his whole life running, I swear I'll spend every day making you and those children happy." Clara couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "Marry me," Jack whispered. "Please." She pulled him to his feet and kissed him hard. "Yes," she said against his lips. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Jack slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "When we get back from Texas," he said, "we'll make it official. Preacher, witnesses, the whole thing." "I don't need any of that." Clara looked down at the ring, then up at the man she loved. "I just need you." They held each other as the stars wheeled overhead, two broken people who had somehow found wholeness in each other. Tomorrow they would ride toward danger. But tonight they had this. And it was enough. They rode hard for 3 days straight. Clara's body ached in places she didn't know could ache. Her thighs were raw from the saddle. Her hands blistered from gripping the reins. But every time Jack asked if she needed to rest, she shook her head and pushed forward. Silas had 3 days' head start. They couldn't afford to fall further behind. "He'll beat us there," Jack said on the third night, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "Even riding fast, we're at least a week behind. Then we ride faster. Clara, the horses can't. We'll trade for fresh ones, steal them if we have to." Clara's jaw set. "I didn't leave my children to fail Jack. We're getting that letter." Jack studied her face in the firelight. Whatever he saw there made him nod slowly. "You've changed," he said quietly. "I had to." "No, I mean—" He reached across and took her hand. "When I found you in that cabin, you were ready to give up. Now look at you, ready to ride into hell itself." "I found something worth fighting for." Jack squeezed her fingers. "So did I." They reached the Texas border on the 6th day. The landscape had changed, flattening into endless stretches of grass and scrub. Clara felt exposed, vulnerable like a rabbit in an open field with hawks circling overhead. "The ranch is another 2 days south," Jack said, "but we need to be careful. Silas has men, loyal men. If they see us coming, we don't let them see us." Jack almost smiled. "You make it sound simple." "Nothing about this is simple, but we're not turning back." They made camp that night in a shallow ravine hidden from view. Jack built a small fire, barely more than embers, and they huddled close for warmth. "Tell me about the ranch," Clara said. "What was it like growing up there?" Jack was quiet for a long moment. "It was good. Before Pa got sick. Before everything went wrong." His voice grew distant. "Ma used to sing while she did the washing. Pa would carry us on his shoulders to check the cattle. Silas and I would race each other across the fields." "You were close. You and Silas." "Once. He was my hero. I wanted to be just like him." Jack's jaw tightened. "Then Ma died, and Pa got the wasting sickness. And Silas changed, became hard, cold, started talking about protecting the family legacy like it was the only thing that mattered. And Evie, she was the baby. Only 7 when Ma passed. Pa couldn't cope with her, she looked too much like Ma, so he sent her away." Jack's voice cracked. "I begged him not to. Got down on my knees and begged, but Silas convinced him it was for the best." Clara felt her heart clench. "You were just a child yourself. Old enough to know it was wrong, not old enough to stop it." Jack stared into the embers. "I've spent 15 years carrying that guilt, wondering if I could have done more, said more, fought harder." "You were 12, Jack. You can't blame yourself for what adults decided." "Can't I?" His eyes met hers. "I let them take her. I let Silas lie to me about the will. I let myself be pushed out without a fight. Every step of the way, I could have done something different." Clara moved closer, pressing her body against his. "You're fighting now. That's what matters. Is it enough? It has to be." They rode through the night, trading sleep for speed. By dawn of the 8th day, Clara could see the ranch in the distance. Her heart sank. The Thornton spread was massive, bigger than anything she'd imagined. The main house alone was larger than Ezra's entire operation. Outbuildings dotted the landscape. Cattle grazed in endless pastures. Men on horseback moved among them, tiny figures against the vast terrain. "How are we supposed to get in there?" Clara whispered. "There's a back way, through the old servant quarters." Jack's eyes scanned the property. "Pa used to let the Mexican workers come and go through a gate near the creek. If it's still there, and if it's not, then we improvise." They waited until nightfall. Clara had never known darkness could be so absolute. No moon, no stars, just endless black pressing in from all sides. "Stay close," Jack breathed. "Don't make a sound." They moved through the darkness like ghosts. Clara's heart hammered so loud she was certain someone would hear it. Every snapping twig made her freeze. Every distant sound made her flinch. The gate was still there. Rusted and half hidden by overgrown brush, but there. Jack worked it open with agonizing slowness, cringing at every creak and groan. "The house," he whispered. "This way." They crept through the property, staying low, sticking to shadows. Clara's breath came in short gasps. Her legs trembled with fear and exhaustion. Then Jack stopped. "Someone's inside." Clara peered through the darkness. A light flickered in one of the ground floor windows of the main house. A figure moved behind the curtain. Silas. Could be, or one of his men. Jack's jaw clenched. "We need to get to Pa's study. That's where he kept all his papers. If the letter is anywhere, it's there." "Where's the study?" "Second floor, east wing." "Can we reach it without going through that room?" Jack considered. "Maybe. There's a servant's staircase. If the door's unlocked." They moved again. Clara's pulse pounded in her ears as they approached the house. Jack tested a side door. Locked. He tried another, also locked. "The cellar," he breathed. Pa never locked the cellar. They found the cellar doors around back. Jack lifted them slowly, revealing a yawning darkness below. "I'll go first," he said. "Watch your step." Clara followed him down into the black. The smell hit her immediately, dust and mold and something else. Something old, forgotten. They moved through the cellar by touch alone. Jack's hand found hers, guiding her through the maze of stored furniture and abandoned equipment. Then they were climbing stairs. A door creaked open. They emerged into a hallway Clara couldn't see. "This way," Jack breathed. They made it to the servants' staircase, started climbing. 1 step, 2, 3. A floorboard groaned beneath Clara's foot. They froze. Voices. Coming from somewhere below, growing louder. "Move!" Jack hissed. They ran. Stealth abandoned, they pounded up the stairs and burst onto the second floor. Jack grabbed Clara's hand and pulled her down the hallway. "There, Pa's study." He threw open the door. They stumbled inside. Jack closed the door behind them and leaned against it, breathing hard. "We don't have much time. Start looking." Clara's eyes adjusted to the darkness. She could make out a desk, bookshelves, a large cabinet against the wall. "The cabinet," Jack said. "Pa kept everything important in there." He crossed the room and yanked it open. Papers spilled out, years of correspondence, ledgers, documents. "Help me look." The letter would be small. Evie's handwriting, she always used purple ink. Clara dropped to her knees and started sorting. Her hands moved frantically, pulling out paper after paper, scanning each one in the dim light. Nothing. 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 "Jack, I can't." "Keep looking." Footsteps in the hallway. Getting closer. Clara's heart stopped. She looked at Jack, saw her terror reflected in his eyes. "The window," he breathed. "If we can—" The door burst open. Light flooded the room. Clara threw her arm up, blinded. "Well, well." Silas's voice was cold with triumph. "The prodigal brother returns." Clara blinked, her vision slowly clearing. Silas stood in the doorway, a lantern in one hand, a pistol in the other. Behind him, 2 men with rifles. "Thought you could sneak in here and steal from me." Silas laughed. "I've had men watching the roads for days. The moment you crossed into Texas, I knew." Jack stepped in front of Clara. "Let her go, Silas. This is between us." "Is it because it seems to me your little widow is in this up to her pretty neck?" Silas's eyes swept over Clara. "Did he tell you about this place? About what he gave up when he ran away?" "He told me you lied to him, stole his inheritance." "Stole—" Silas's smile turned cruel. "I saved this ranch. I worked 18-hour days while our father rotted in his bed. I made sacrifices Jack couldn't imagine, and now he wants to waltz back in and claim half." He raised the pistol. "I don't think so." "The letter," Jack said. "Evie's letter. Where is it?" Something flickered in Silas's expression, just for a moment. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Liar. Evie wrote to me after Pa died. You took that letter. You've kept it all these years because you knew it could destroy you." "You're grasping at straws." "Am I?" Jack took a step forward. "Then why are you so scared? Why bring guns to face an unarmed man if you've got nothing to hide?" "I'm not scared of you, little brother. I never have been." "Then prove it." Jack's voice dropped. "Show me the letter. Let Clara read it. If it says what you claim, if I really have no right to this ranch, we'll leave. You'll never see us again." Silas hesitated. Clara could see the calculation in his eyes, the uncertainty. "Or," Jack continued, "we can do this the hard way. You can shoot us both, bury our bodies in the back 40, and spend the rest of your life wondering when someone else will come looking. No one knows you're here. The Holdens know. Ezra sent word to a lawyer in Denver before we left. If we don't return in 3 weeks, He'll start asking questions. Jack's voice was steady calm. You might get away with it. Or you might not. Is that a risk you're willing to take? The silence stretched. Then Silas laughed a harsh, bitter sound. You always were clever, Jack. Cleverer than you let on. He lowered the pistol slightly. Fine. You want the letter, I'll give you the letter. But it won't change anything. He crossed to the desk, opened a hidden drawer, and pulled out a small envelope. The paper was yellowed with age, but Clara could see the purple ink bleeding through from the other side. Silas threw it at Jack's feet. Read it. See for yourself. Then get the hell off my property. Jack picked up the letter with trembling hands. He unfolded it slowly, his eyes moving across the page. Clara watched his face change, watched the color drain away, watched something break behind his eyes. Jack. She touched his arm. What does it say? He handed her the letter without speaking. Clara read, Dearest Jackie, I miss you so much. The cousins are kind, but it isn't the same. I cry every night and ask God to bring me home. Papa came to see me before he got so sick. He told me a secret. He said you and Silas must share the ranch when he's gone. He made me promise to tell you if Silas ever tried to take it all. He said you would know what to do. I'm scared, Jackie. Silas came to see me too. He said terrible things. He said if I ever told anyone about Papa's secret, he would make sure I never came home again. Please come get me. Please. I don't want to be here anymore. Your loving sister Evie. P.S. The will is hidden in Mama's Bible. Papa put it there so Silas wouldn't find it. Don't tell anyone. Clara's hands shook. She looked up at Silas, horror dawning. You threatened her, she breathed. You threatened a 7-year-old child to keep her quiet. I did what was necessary. She was your sister. She was a liability. Silas's voice was ice. Just like Jack. Just like everyone who stands between me and what I've built. Jack hadn't moved. He stood frozen, the letter dangling from his fingers, his face a mask of devastation. She died thinking I'd abandoned her, he said quietly. She died alone, far from home, believing I didn't care enough to come. She died of scarlet fever. It had nothing to do with... She died because you terrified her into silence. Jack's voice erupted in fury. She died believing she meant nothing to anyone. And you've lived with that for 15 years without a shred of remorse. I've lived with building an empire, with making something of this family instead of letting it crumble into dust. Silas's jaw tightened. You want to hate me, fine. Hate me. But everything I did for the Thornton name. The Thornton name, Jack laughed bitterly. Is that what you tell yourself? That's how you sleep at night. I sleep just fine. Then you're more of a monster than I thought. Something shifted in Silas's expression, the first crack in his armor. You think I don't remember? Silas's voice dropped. You think I don't see her face every time I close my eyes? She was my sister too, Jack. I loved her too. You had a strange way of showing it. I was 20 years old. Pa was dying. The ranch was failing. I did what I thought was right. For the first time, emotion broke through Silas's cold facade. I've spent 15 years building this place back up. 15 years trying to prove that it was worth it. That all the sacrifices meant something. And did they? Silas didn't answer. Clara stepped forward. Mr. Thornton, I don't know you. I don't know what kind of man you really are beneath all this. But I know what it's like to carry guilt. I know what it's like to make impossible choices. She met his eyes. It's not too late to make this right. Make it right. Silas laughed hollowly. Evie's dead. Pa's dead. Ma's dead. How exactly do I make any of that right? By stopping this, by giving Jack what he's owed, by letting go of the lies and the threats and the fear. Clara's voice softened. You don't have to keep being the villain, Silas. That's a choice you make every day. Silas stared at her for a long moment. Then his shoulders sagged. "The Bible," he said quietly. "It's still in Ma's room. I couldn't bring myself to—" He stopped, swallowed. "The will is there, just like Evie said." "Silas," Jack started. "Take it." Silas's voice was barely above a whisper. "Take your half. Take whatever you want. I'm tired, Jack. So tired of fighting. What about the ranch, the foreclosure? I'll figure it out. I always do." Silas finally looked at his brother. Really looked at him. "I'm sorry. For everything. I know it doesn't change anything. I know it doesn't bring Evie back. But I'm sorry." Jack stood frozen. Clara could see the war playing out across his face. The anger, the grief, the desperate desire to believe. "I didn't come here for an apology," Jack said finally. "I came here for the truth. And now you have it, all of it." Silas holstered his pistol. "The question is, what are you going to do with it?" Clara watched Jack struggle. Watched him grapple with 15 years of pain and betrayal. Watched him stand at the crossroads of his entire life. "I want my half," Jack said slowly. "Not to take from you, but to build something of my own. Somewhere else. Far from here. Done. And I want you to know that I'll never forgive you for what you did to Evie. Never. But I'm done carrying this hate. It's too heavy." Silas nodded slowly. "That's more than I deserve." "Yes, it is." The brothers stood in silence, the wreckage of their family scattered between them. Then Jack held out his hand. Silas stared at it for a long moment. When he took it, his grip was firm. "Goodbye, Silas." "Goodbye, Jack." They found the will exactly where Evie had said it would be, tucked inside their mother's Bible, hidden for 15 years. Jack didn't speak as he read it. Didn't speak as he folded it carefully and placed it in his pocket. He didn't speak at all until they were miles away from the ranch, riding through the pre-dawn darkness toward a future neither of them had expected. "She knew," he finally said. "Evie knew the whole time, and she died trying to protect me." Clara reached across and took his hand. "She loved you. That's what matters." "I failed her." "No, Silas failed her. Your father failed her. The adults who should have protected her failed her." Clara squeezed his fingers. "You were a child, Jack. You did everything a child could do." "It wasn't enough." "It never feels like enough. That's what guilt does. It tells us we should have been more done, more been better." Clara's voice grew thick. "I know that feeling. I've lived with it every day since Will died. But at some point, you have to forgive yourself. Not because you deserve it, but because carrying that weight will destroy you." Jack was quiet for a long time. Then, "How did you get so wise, Clara McAllister?" "I married the right man. Twice." Despite everything, Jack laughed. It was a broken sound, wet with unshed tears, but it was real. "Let's go home," he said. "Let's go back to our children and start the life we were meant to have." Clara smiled through her own tears. "I thought you'd never ask." The journey home took 12 days. 12 days of hard riding, short nights, and conversations that stripped away every last wall between them. Clara told Jack about her father, the merchant who'd become a tyrant after her mother's death, the arranged marriage she'd fled, the shame that still haunted her. Jack told Clara about the war, the boys he'd killed, the friends he'd watched die, the nightmares that had followed him across a decade and a half. By the time they crossed back into Montana territory, they knew each other completely. Every scar, every secret, every broken piece. "There it is," Jack said, pulling his horse to a stop. The Holden Ranch spread before them, smoke rising from chimneys, cattle dotting the fields. Home. Clara's heart clenched. "The children. We'll be fine. Martha's been watching them like a hawk." "I know. But 12 days, Jack. I've never been away from them this long." "Then let's not waste another minute." They rode hard down the final stretch. Clara's eyes scanned desperately for any sign of Henry and Lizzie. Then she saw them. Two small figures burst from the main house, running full speed across the muddy yard. Clara was off her horse before it fully stopped, dropping to her knees, just as Henry and Lizzie crashed into her arms. "Mama! Mama! You came back! I promised, didn't I?" Clara buried her face in her children's hair, breathing in their scent, feeling their small bodies pressed against hers. "I will always come back. We missed you so much." Lizzie was crying. "Mrs. Martha was nice, but she's not you." "I know, baby. I missed you too, every single minute." Henry pulled back, his face serious. "Did you get the letter? Did you stop the bad man?" Clara looked at Jack, who had dismounted and was watching them with an expression of such tenderness it made her heart ache. "We got the letter," she said. "And the bad man. He's not going to bother us anymore." "Did Mr. Jack punch him?" Henry's eyes gleamed with hope. Jack laughed. "I might have, once or twice." "I knew it!" Henry broke away from Clara and launched himself at Jack. "You're a real hero, Mr. Jack." Jack caught the boy, lifting him easily. "I'm no hero, son. Just a man trying to do right by the people he loves." "That's what heroes are," Henry said matter-of-factly. "Mama told me. Papa was a hero too." Jack's eyes met Clara's over Henry's head. Something passed between them, an understanding, an acceptance, a promise. "Your mama's right," Jack said quietly. "Your papa was a hero, and I'm honored to follow in his footsteps." Martha and Ezra had emerged from the house, watching the reunion with matching smiles. "About time you two showed up," Ezra called. "Martha was starting to wear a hole in the floor with all her pacing." "I was not pacing, I was exercising." Martha strode forward and pulled Clara into a fierce hug. "You had us worried, girl. Both of you." "I'm sorry. The journey took longer than expected." "And?" Martha pulled back, searching Clara's face. "Did you find what you were looking for?" Clara reached into her pocket and pulled out the folded will. "We found everything." The celebration that night was unlike anything Clara had experienced. Martha cooked enough food to feed an army. Ezra broke out a bottle of whiskey he'd been saving for a special occasion. The ranch hands gathered around the big table, toasting Jack and Clara's return, sharing stories and laughter. But it was the small moments that meant the most to Clara. Lizzie falling asleep in her lap, thumb in her mouth, completely at peace. Henry sitting beside Jack, asking endless questions about the trip, hanging on every word. Jack's hand finding hers beneath the table, squeezing gently, silently, promising forever. After the children were put to bed, Clara and Jack sat on the porch of their little cabin, watching the stars emerge. "It's over," Clara said softly. "It's really over." "One part of it anyway." Jack's arm tightened around her shoulders. "But the best part's just beginning. The ranch, your inheritance. That's part of it. But I meant us." Jack turned to face her. "I've been thinking, Clara, about what happens next." "And what did you decide?" "That I want to build something here, not in Texas, not on Silas's land, but here, with Ezra and Martha, with our family." His voice grew rough. "I know I promised you we'd go wherever you wanted, and if you want to leave, if you want to start fresh somewhere else." "Jack." Clara pressed her finger to his lips. "This is home. These people, this place, it's where we belong." "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Jack's smile was like sunrise. "Then I reckon we should make it official. The wedding, I mean. Unless you've changed your mind about marrying a broken-down trail boss." "I haven't changed my mind about anything." Clara lifted her hand, letting his mother's ring catch the starlight. "Except maybe one thing." "What's that?" "I don't want to wait. For the wedding." Clara met his eyes. "Life's too short, Jack. We've both learned that the hard way. I don't want to waste another day pretending we need permission to be happy." Jack stared at her. "You want to get married now?" As soon as possible. Reverend Price could come out tomorrow. Martha and Ezra could be our witnesses. The children. She didn't get to finish. Jack's kiss answered for him. Reverend Samuel Price arrived the next afternoon looking slightly bewildered, but entirely willing. "Usually folks give me more than a day's notice," he said, clutching his Bible. "But I suppose the Lord doesn't require advance planning to bless a union." The ceremony was simple. Clara wore her best dress, the one Martha had helped her mend and press. Jack wore a clean shirt and the expression of a man who couldn't believe his luck. Henry stood solemnly beside Jack, serving as best man. Lizzie scattered wildflowers she'd picked that morning. Martha cried. Ezra pretended not to. "Do you, Jackson Thornton, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Reverend Price intoned. "I do." Jack's voice was steady, certain. "And do you, Clara Jane McAllister, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Clara looked at Jack. At the man who'd burst through her door in a blizzard, who'd fed her children when they were starving, who'd given her a reason to live when she'd been ready to die. "I do," she said, "with all my heart." Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Montana and the Almighty God above, I pronounce you man and wife. Reverend Price smiled. "You may kiss the bride." Jack cupped Clara's face in his hands. His touch was gentle, reverent. "Hello, Mrs. Thornton," he whispered. "Hello, Mr. Thornton." Their kiss was soft, sweet, full of promise. Behind them, Henry made a disgusted noise while Lizzie cheered. "They're gross," Henry informed Martha. "That's love, child," Martha replied. "You'll understand when you're older." "I hope not." The wedding feast lasted until well past dark. More food, more laughter, more stories. Clara couldn't remember ever feeling this full, not just in her stomach, but in her soul. When the last guest had departed and the children were finally asleep, Jack carried Clara across the threshold of their cabin. "I believe that's tradition," he said, setting her down gently. "Since when do you care about tradition?" "Since I found a woman worth doing things right for." They stood in the darkness holding each other. No words needed. No words sufficient. "I love you," Clara finally whispered. "I love you too. More than I knew was possible. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me we'll never forget how lucky we are, that we'll never take this for granted, that every morning when we wake up we'll remember that we almost lost each other before we even met." Jack pressed his forehead to hers. "I promise. Every day. For the rest of our lives." Outside, the Montana wind whispered through the grass. Inside, two broken people became whole. Spring arrived in full force over the following weeks. The snow melted. The fields turned green. New calves were born. And Clara discovered something else. Something that changed everything. She was standing by the pump, filling a bucket, when the dizziness hit. One moment she was fine. The next the world spun sideways, and she was on her knees in the mud, gasping for breath. "Clara?" Martha was at her side in seconds. "What happened? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine. I just got dizzy for a moment." Martha's eyes narrowed. "When did you last have your monthly—" Clara's face flushed. I don't—" She stopped, counted backward, counted again. "Oh," she breathed. Martha's stern expression melted into a knowing smile. "How far along you reckon?" "I don't know. 6 weeks? 8. And you haven't told Jack?" "I didn't know there was anything to tell." Clara pressed her hand to her stomach. A baby. Jack's baby. After everything they'd been through. "Martha, I'm 40 years old. I thought I was past—" "The Lord works in mysterious ways." Martha helped her to her feet. "Now you're going to go inside and rest. I'll finish the chores." "But—" "That wasn't a suggestion, Clara Thornton. That was an order." Clara spent the rest of the day in a daze. A baby. She was going to have another baby. After losing Will, after nearly losing herself, after everything life was giving her one more chance. But would Jack be happy he'd signed up for 2 children, not 3? He'd never mentioned wanting babies of his own. What if, "You're thinking too loud"? Clara jumped. Jack stood in the doorway watching her with concerned eyes. "You've been lying there for hours," he said. "Martha won't tell me what's wrong. Said I had to ask you." He crossed to the bed and sat beside her. "Clara, you're scaring me. Are you sick? Is something—" "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air. Jack's face went completely blank. Clara's heart stopped. "Jack, say something." "Pregnant," he repeated slowly. "You mean a baby? Our baby?" "Yes. You're going to have a baby." "We're going to have a baby. If you want it." Clara's voice trembled. "I know we never discussed this. I know you might not have planned for—" Jack kissed her. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet with tears. "A baby," he breathed. "Clara, we're having a baby. You're happy." "Happy." Jack laughed a wild, joyful sound. "I'm terrified. I'm amazed. I don't even know what I am. But yes, God, yes, I'm happy." He placed his hand on her stomach, his touch impossibly gentle. "Hello in there," he whispered. "I'm your papa. I know we haven't met yet, but I want you to know something. I'm going to spend every day of my life making sure you feel loved, making sure you never doubt not for 1 second that you belong." Clara's tears spilled over. "Jack, I never thought I'd have this," he said, his voice breaking. "A wife, children, a home. I'd given up hoping for any of it. And now—" He shook his head in wonder. "Now I have everything." The news spread through the ranch like wildfire. Martha declared herself official nursemaid and started knitting immediately. Ezra built a cradle from scratch, working late into the nights. Henry was suspicious at first. Another child meant competition for attention, but came around when Jack explained that being a big brother was the most important job in the world. Lizzie was overjoyed. "I want a sister," she announced. "A brother would be okay too, I guess, but I really want a sister." "We'll see what the Lord decides," Clara said, smiling. "Can I name her? We'll discuss it. I want to name her Flower, or Butterfly, or Princess Butterfly Flower. We'll definitely discuss it." Summer came, then autumn. Clara's belly grew round. Jack's nightmares faded, not entirely, but enough. He still woke sometimes, gasping and sweating, but Clara was always there to bring him back. "I've got you," she would whisper. "You're safe. You're home." And slowly, night by night, the ghosts released their grip. Letters came from Texas occasionally. Silas had managed to save the ranch barely. He'd sold off half the cattle and a portion of the land, but the core of the Thornton legacy remained. He never wrote directly to Jack, but he sent updates through a lawyer. A gesture, perhaps. A bridge left standing. "Do you ever regret it?" Clara asked one evening. "Not taking your half? Not going back to claim what was yours?" Jack considered the question. "That land was never mine. Not really. It was built on lies and broken promises." He pulled her close. "This, what we have here, this is mine. This is ours. And I wouldn't trade it for 1,000 Texas ranches." The baby came in December, on the anniversary of the night Jack had burst through Clara's door. Martha served as midwife. Jack paced outside, wearing a trench in the frozen ground. Henry and Lizzie huddled by the fire, their faces pale with worry. "Is Mama going to be okay?" Lizzie whispered. "Mama's strong," Henry said, though his voice shook. "She's the strongest person in the whole world." Hours passed. Jack wore out 3 pairs of boots worth of pacing. Then finally, a cry pierced the night. Not a cry of pain. A baby's cry. Jack burst through the door. Martha met him, her face split in a triumphant grin. It's a girl, she said. Healthy and loud, just like her mother. Jack pushed past her. Clara lay in the bed exhausted but radiant, a tiny bundle in her arms. Come meet your daughter, she said softly. Jack approached as if walking on sacred ground. He looked down at the baby, red-faced, squalling, absolutely perfect. She's beautiful, he breathed. Clara, she's so beautiful. She looks like you. Poor thing. Clara laughed weakly. She has your eyes, I can already tell. Jack reached out one trembling finger. The baby grasped it immediately, her tiny hand closing around his calloused skin. Hello, little one, Jack whispered. I'm your papa. The baby stopped crying. She looked up at him with those dark eyes, his eyes, and something in Jack's chest broke and reformed into something new. What should we name her? Clara asked. Jack didn't hesitate. Evie, he said. Evangeline, after my sister. Clara's eyes filled with tears. That's perfect. She'll never know her namesake, but she'll know the story. She'll know that she comes from a long line of fighters. Jack's voice grew rough. And she'll know that she is loved, more than anything in this world. Lizzie appeared in the doorway, Henry close behind. Can we see the baby? Clara beckoned them closer. Both children climbed onto the bed, peering at their new sister with wide eyes. She's so tiny, Henry said. She's so loud, Lizzie added, as Evie began to fuss again. She'll grow, Clara said. And you two will help teach her everything she needs to know. Like how to read, Henry asked. And how to ride horses, Lizzie added. All of that, and more. Clara looked at Jack, at her children, at the tiny life in her arms. We're a family now, all of us, and families take care of each other. That night, after the children were asleep and the baby was finally settled, Jack and Clara sat by the fire. 1 year ago, Clara said quietly, I was ready to die. I had given up on everything. On life, on hope, on myself. I remember. You saved me, Jack. Not just my body, my soul. Jack shook his head. You saved yourself, Clara. I just opened the door. You did more than that. You showed me that it was possible to love again, to trust again, to believe that good things could still happen. Clara reached for his hand. You gave me a reason to live. And you gave me a reason to stop running. Jack lifted her hand to his lips. All those years on the trail, I told myself I was chasing something. Adventure. Freedom. The next horizon. But I wasn't chasing anything. I was running away from a pain I couldn't face. And now I've faced it. Not alone, but with you. Jack's eyes met hers. You make me brave, Clara. Brave enough to stay. Brave enough to feel. Brave enough to be the man I always wanted to become. The fire crackled. Evie made a small sound from her cradle. Outside the winter wind howled, but inside all was warm and safe, and full of love. Tell me something, Clara said. That night you found us when you burst through the door in the middle of the blizzard. What were you thinking? What made you stop at our cabin when you could have kept riding? Jack was quiet for a long moment. I saw the chimney with no smoke, he finally said. And I knew something was wrong. Something deep in my gut told me that if I rode past, I would regret it for the rest of my life. Your gut told you to save us. My gut told me to stop running. Jack turned to face her. I didn't know you, Clara, didn't know your children. But when I saw you standing there, thin as a rail, fierce as a lion, ready to die for the people you loved, I knew I had found what I'd been searching for. What was that purpose? Jack's voice was rough with emotion. A reason to be better. A reason to face my demons. A reason to finally come home. Clara leaned into him, feeling his heartbeat against her cheek. "I'm glad you stopped," she whispered. "So am I. Every day. For the rest of my life I will be glad I stopped." They sat in silence, watching the flames dance, listening to their daughter breathe. "What happens now?" Clara asked. "Now," Jack smiled. "Now we live. We raise our children. We build something that matters. We love each other through the good times and the bad." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "We make every single day count." "That sounds like a good plan?" "I thought so." Clara closed her eyes. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt completely at peace. Not because life was perfect, it never would be, but because she had found her place, her people, her home. A dying widow had once begged a stranger to take her children. That stranger had answered, "I'll take you too." And from that moment, from that single act of impossible kindness, 2 shattered lives had become whole. A family had been forged in the crucible of hardship. Love had risen from the ashes of despair. This was their story. Not a fairy tale, but something better. Something real. Something earned through tears and struggle, and the stubborn refusal to give up. Clara Thornton. Once Clara McAllister. Once Clara Whitmore. Once, a desperate woman on a frozen road had finally found her forever. And it was worth every step of the journey.